What's up, my friends, and welcome into another edition of the Running Back Podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with us once again. Tyler Zulli, Frank Klose back with you for another week of Phillies conversation. And this week, regular season conversation. We had opening day this past weekend. The Phillies are now into their second series. In fact, we'll be starting the series finale, the rubber match against the Washington Nationals in just a little bit. Day game today with a chance to win their first series of the year. And while it's been maybe a little bit of an underwhelming start to the season, Phillies 2-3, there have been some good, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Specifically, Andrew Painter's first start, his major league debut. There's been some bad offensive struggles, have been very real, especially towards the top of the lineup. But we have a lot to get into, and it's another week of the Running Back Podcast. First and foremost, as always, my friend Frank, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Baseball's back, right? So life is good.
Life is good. The weather is warm, at least for the next couple of days. You know, it's funny. I was looking at the weather app, and you're in just the Northeast during the early portions of spring when there's 80s and 40s in the same screenshot. And I was looking at it, I'm like, 80 today, and then sometime next week I saw a high of like 48, and I'm like, this is such a weird, just a weird time for weather. And it's a weird time for baseball weather because you saw opening day, gorgeous. I know you were down there, right? It was just a beautiful day at Citizens Bank Park. And then Saturday against the Rangers, well, I think the broadcast said it was the coldest first pitch temperature since 2019.
Yeah, that was one extreme to the other. But you know what? I'll tell you that opening day, it brought everybody out too, because everybody knew it was going to be a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Everybody showed up. The number of people tailgating. I think they're just excited for the season too. I mean, I think the weather and just the general excitement is back. I know the off season wasn't as exciting, so after the way everything ended, but people seemed back in.
Yeah, I certainly think so, and I think it really takes getting to opening day. And I think we'll talk a little bit later about, you say, you bring up the getting back in. We'll talk a little bit about the issues from the Phillies offense. And I think people are a little less lenient on those issues early in the season than they've been in years past. But let's start with the good. And the good last night was Andrew Painter made his long-anticipated, long-awaited major league debut. And I think he was as good as you could possibly have asked for. He pitched into the sixth. He struck out 8. I thought the command was good. He got 11 first pitch strikes. 68% of his pitches were either called strikes or generated, strikes in terms of swing and miss and foul balls and things like that. But honestly, Frank, to me, the biggest thing, the fastball velo was good and the strikeouts were great and all of that. The biggest thing to me was I thought he really commanded the mound. I thought he did a really nice job of working in his pitch arsenal. He threw all 6 pitches at least 5 times in yesterday's game. And I really thought, for a major league debut for a 22-year-old kid, he looked poised. He looked really comfortable and confident on that mound. And, you really kind of noticed it right from the jump. He strikes out James Wood to start the game. He gets out of a first and third jam in the second. Honestly, I think all in all, I could not be any happier with the way that Andrew Painter pitched yesterday.
Yeah, my expectations personally, and I said this on the air, I said, get him through 5. He'll probably be fine, and then get him out of there. Well, they let him come back for the 6th. I would have been satisfied with 5. Yeah, I know his pitch count was low, but really wanted to end on a high note too. So unfortunately, that one run does score, inherited by Tanner Banks, but so 1 earned run over 5 1/3, not a bad way to start. And to me, talking about that poise, he just looks like he belongs. I don't think he's been super flashy. I don't expect him to be an immediate ace, but I expect him to go about his business like a major leaguer, like he belongs in the major leagues, and keep Phillies in games. I mean, that's what more do you want from your number 5?
And I think the one thing that I noticed, especially talking about that pitch mix in the arsenal, was the curveball yesterday. Early in the game, he was using it as a swing and miss pitch. Then, the Nationals started to sit on it a little bit. Then he started flipping it over as like kind of a get me over, first pitch early in the count, strike pitch. And so that they started sitting on that. And then he started working in the other stuff, the changeup, the slider, And I thought that the curveball really was kind of, the fastball was strike one. The fastball was, he used it well up in the zone. I thought he located it pretty well throughout the game. But I thought the curveball to me looked like the most purposeful pitch in that start. Whereas he and JT, I thought, had a really good game plan. I thought that they really mixed in that curveball well. Again, out of the zone early, in the zone, in the middle portion of his start, kind of back out of the zone later in the start to get more swing and miss. And, he didn't generate 18 whiffs or anything like that, but I thought he did a really nice job of keeping the Nationals offense off balance. He used those pitches well. He mixed his spots. He mixed his locations. He mixed his speeds. All in all, I really, really can't I don't have a bad word to say about how this start unfolded. And I know it's the Nationals, and people are going to say, oh, it's not a very good lineup, and I get that. But there's still some good players in that lineup. James Wood is a bona fide all-star. I know C.J. Abrams at times can be a little bit aloof on the field, we'll say, but he's an incredible player and an incredible athlete. That team can run. That's a fast, athletic, young team. You get them on the bases, they want to steal bags. I just think while it's not, we're not talking about the elite of the elite type of lineups, it's still a major league lineup that can cause some havoc if you allow them to hang around. And over the last two nights, they've gotten some less than stellar contact fall for base hits. They had 8 hits in the first 10 plus innings of this series that were hit at 85 miles an hour or softer. It's just baseball happens that way sometimes. But I think Andrew Painter did a really nice job of working out of those spots, pitching with confidence, getting ahead when he needed to, locating well. Just a really, really great start from him.
Yeah, and I think this is why the Phillies paid JT Realmuto to come back, right? I mean, imagine being that young 22-year-old and you get to throw to the guy that's been a top catcher in the league dating back to, well, how old was he when Realmuto made his debut, right? So
gosh, he was probably 12.
so I think that is why you're paying Realmuto. I don't expect him to put up the offensive numbers that he has, but I mean, the fact that you can put a rookie catcher, put a rookie pitcher like this with such this upside, and to be able to come up with that game plan and make adjustments on the fly, that's where he's worth his money. So I think that I think the Phillies will intentionally try to match the two throughout the season. When they plan the days that Marchand will play, I bet you he's going to catch the number 4 spot a lot, just as he did most recently. Save Realmuto for Painter, make sure he's there for the starts to really, really bring him along.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, Marchand probably will catch Taijuan Walker quite a bit in the early going, and maybe it's Aaron Nola later in the season, because the numbers are weird. I think it was Nola who was the one guy who had better numbers with Stubbs over the last few years than with JT. Everybody else's numbers are sizably better with Realmuto behind the plate, which makes sense. A stalwart veteran defensive catcher with good pop time, good knowledge of the zone. And I said the other day with JT, this ABS system, JT may steal 100 pitches when the season is all said and done, because he's so smart in the zone. He knows how to operate within the zone, where if I look to him and he's tapping the helmet, I expect him to win that challenge, probably 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, a couple little blips in that early going. What was it, game 2, where Schwarber challenged the wrong one?
Yes.
He couldn't.
Yeah.
So he challenged one that he lost, and then he couldn't challenge the one that was blown immediately afterwards. So it's just some learning curve
with
here.
Schwarber too, he's so his eye and his plate discipline is so good that if he's hitting and he challenges, he's kind of another guy that, because they're going to have to pick and choose their spots. Like bottom of the third, and Brandon Marsh is up. No disrespect to Brandon Marsh, but you're probably going to save that challenge for later. Bottom of the 7th, game in the balance, Kyle Schwarber's up. If he challenges a pitch, there's purpose behind that challenge. You know what I mean? So that's the one thing with a veteran team. Now, granted, it's a team that is pretty free swinging, and I think sometimes people get very dissatisfied with their approach. But with a veteran team, you would think that their knowledge of the strike zone is probably going to be beneficial to the ABS system for them.
Yeah, so but a little bit of a learning curve, just executing it at the right times. So far, I think they'll find their groove. I think little clunky at start, but they're going to find their groove.
So an opportunity to win their first series of the year this afternoon against the Nationals. It's been a weird year for the Phils to start because obviously offensive productivity has been, lacking at times. And heading into yesterday's game, the Phillies were actually dead last in run differential. Now, a huge part of that, of course, was because they lost by 12 in game one against the Nationals. They are now minus 14, I believe, in run differential. Again, 12 of them coming in one game. But the offensive productivity has been lacking for lack of a better word. It's been it's eluded them at times. And there's kind of been an early trend of they have struggled against left-handed starters, which is something that they've struggled against last year as well. They saw Jacob Latz. He pitched well in that spot start. They saw Mackenzie Gore. He pitched well. They saw Foster Griffin. He pitched well. And the lefty who got the opener nod yesterday was 1-2-3 through the top of the lineup. I think it's kind of evident that they are struggling against left-handed starters to begin the year.
Yeah, I got some numbers for you. So it's 10 for 71 with a 197 slugging percentage against lefties so far this season. Yeah, that is putrid. So it's a 141 average against lefty starters. So yeah, I mean, really, that right hand of the platoon better come forth. I mean, that's why they're going with all these platoons. Is in the name of hitting lefty pitching, but is it even paying dividends so far?
Well, I think, when you look at the platoon pieces and, we've talked about Otto Kemp, we've talked about Edmundo Sosa. The one guy that I think you just give him extended run is Justin Crawford. Obviously hit like 370 against lefties last year, AAA, of course, but has hit against lefties pretty much everywhere he goes. I'm not expecting him to hit 370 against these lefties, but if it's 270, that's well worth the investment of him playing close to every day, even if it is against left-handed pitching. Like I said early in the season, right before the season started, I'm hoping for him to get kind of like a 300 at bat run, really just kind of plug and play at the bottom of the lineup and let him see what he can do. That includes against left-handed pitching. I know why they do it with Marsh. I know why they do it with Stott. Do I agree with it all the time with Stott? I don't, but I get why they do it. With Justin Crawford, I think I'm just letting him face both lefties and righties and letting him go because the early returns have showed you that nobody's hitting lefties. So you might as well at least give the kid who you hope to be a stalwart in your outfield for, maybe a decade plus, give him extended run against some of these lefties early on.
What do you think of him having the day off so far? By the way, Crawford hitting 200 against lefties and 429 against righties so far.
200 is an improvement over what they've gotten so far.
Well, if when you compare Marsh playing against the lefties, that's probably better.
Yeah, I mean, the day off. What was it? 4 games into the year, with a day off in between in that first series. Strange to me. Listen, he's not going to play 162. I think Kyle Schwarber's probably the only guy on this team that's going to play 162. If anybody does, I think it was only 8 or 9 guys in the entire league last year did it, and Schwarber was one of them. But I would prefer Justin Crawford to start getting his days off when they play, 20 out of 21 come May and June, not when they play 3 out of 6 in March and April. I get why he doesn't want to, run him into the ground early, but that felt like a weird early sit for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's something we don't know about. I mean,
Sure.
Did he tweak something? I mean, we don't always get the real answers if someone's just a slightly banged up. They just call it a day off. But yeah, that was a little curious to me. And by the way, Marsh is also hitting an even 200 against lefties so far. So but the other thing too is you lose that defense, and I
Sure.
mean you definitely saw. To me, the Walker game, I mean, it was just like one thing after the other. I mean, he didn't really get drilled per se. Like there are lot of little balls jumping in, defensive miscues, poor defensive decisions. It just all just seemed to compound. So I like having, especially Walker's designed to put the ball into play these days.
Yes.
So I thought they really lacked the defense in center and left when you do that.
Yeah, I think it's with Taijuan Walker, you saw it with him on Monday night. You saw it with Zach Littell last night for the Nationals. Those guys do not throw particularly hard, and when you don't throw particularly hard, you're going to generate a ton of contact. And there's a reason as to why those two guys have, especially with Littell. Littell had like a 4 point something walk rate last year. You have to be around the zone because you're not going to get a lot of swing and miss, but you have to be specific with those pitches. And if you're executing, or if you're not, or excuse me, if you're not executing those pitches, you're going to need your defense behind you to back you up. To me, there's no secret with the Phillies. Their best defensive alignment in the outfield is Marsh, Crawford, Garcia. Their worst defensive alignment in the outfield as of the first 5 games is Kemp, Marsh, Garcia. To me, I know you're facing a lefty. In that spot, Crawford probably has to play to alleviate some of the defensive miscues. I shouldn't even say miscues, just the defensive lapse with Kemp in left field. You saw the ball that got over Kemp's head. I don't know if Marsh gets to that ball, but it was misplayed by Kemp. You saw the ball that got over Marsh's head. I don't know if Crawford gets to that ball, but I do think that there's a better chance of those two things happening with Marsh and Crawford in their respected positions. I know it's 162 games. I know neither of those guys are going to play 162, but I think in game 4 of the season, where it's really only the 4th game in 6 days, I probably would have played Crawford in that spot.
I think you see the indictment of having 2 platoons on your roster. You don't have a backup center fielder.
Right.
The best they have is Pedro Leon at AAA, and then they just signed Oscar Mercado to stash at AAA because, of course, Rojas isn't around. But that they really, in making 2 platoons, they kind of cost themselves a defensive center fielder on the bench, and they kind of cost themselves someone on the bench with pop. So I'm not a fan of the double platoons. I understand why they're doing it, but I think so. I mean, this is my initial reaction after a couple games. Like they need an everyday left fielder.
Yeah, and I think, listen, I probably have been too critical of Brandon Marsh throughout his career. I think that Brandon Marsh is a good platoon player. And he, since May, the stat that the broadcasters like to use, since his return to the lineup after, what was he, 0 for 27 or something
for the
like
month
that?
of April. He didn't get a hit in the
Right.
entire month of April last year.
If you take that out of the equation, he had a really solid year. Now, mostly playing against right-handed pitching, and that's done, specifically done for a reason. But there's no question in my mind that Brandon Marsh is a good hitter against right-handed pitching. I think the issue is Brandon Marsh is a good hitter against right-handed pitching, and he's not a good hitter against left-handed pitching. But you are going to have to try to allow one of these two guys. When I say one of these two guys, I mean him or Stott, to have some semblance of an extended run against lefties at some point. They're not 22-year-old players anymore. They're, into their mid-20s now. Brandon Marsh is closing in on the end of his arbitration years. Bryson Stott is closing in on the end of his arbitration years. I think Stott has one more year after this, I believe. These aren't kids anymore. I know they still seem young compared to the veteran core, but they're not kids anymore. Somebody has to be given an extended run against lefties just to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I would rather it be Stott. I mean, I think that they kind of gave up on Stott when he went into kind of a little downturn last year. Remember, he was leading off for a while and playing against everybody. I mean,
and he was quite good for like a 3 or 4 week run in that leadoff spot.
And then they gave up on him against lefties after he struggled a bit. So I would I would like to see him play more against lefties. I think he's the high contact type bat that I'm not as worried about him against lefties as I would be Marsh against lefties. And
Well,
so
and the thing with Stott, that when Stott is going well, he's hitting with 2 strikes. When Stott is not going well, he's swinging over top or underneath a lot of high fastballs. It's a pretty easy formula to figure out how Stott is hitting. But with him, when he is hitting with 2 strikes, I feel more comfortable with him against the lefty with 2 strikes than I do with Marsh. Now, against the righty, Brandon Marsh is a tough out with 2 strikes. I mean, he still strikes out a good bit, but he does a really nice job of battling back against right-handed pitching. But I agree with you. If I'm picking one of the two of them to get a look, an extended look against left-handed pitching, I would also choose Bryson Stott.
and by the way, too, the fact that the Phillies have a full-time DH that also ties up a roster spot, right? Because you can't. Well, I know they have, but you really can't put Schwarber in the field. So
Well, no, but I think in Schwarber's case, he's such an extreme example because he is the best full-time DH in all of baseball. Because, and I say that because Shohei Ohtani is also a pitcher. Like, I understand that when Ohtani DHs, he's one of the best hitters in the world. Specifically, one position DHs, Kyle Schwarber may be the best in baseball.
yeah, oh, he is. But then I think the rest of your roster needs to accommodate that, and so you can't have 2 platoons and to have somebody be your DH and nothing else.
So, speaking of good defense, and one player that I think has been pretty good so far, because the trend has been the top 3 has really struggled. Turner has struggled. Bryce Harper has struggled. Kyle Schwarber has 2 home runs, but his struggles have been there a little bit. Alec Boehm hit into a inning-ending double play yesterday that I thought might come back to bite them. Did not, but at the time I thought it was an opportunity for them to tack on a couple extra runs. One guy that I thought has swung the bat really well is Adolis Garcia. And
Yeah.
I've not been we've talked a lot this offseason about how I just don't know if Adolis Garcia is going to be the guy they're hoping him to be. But his bat speed is actually up about a mile an hour. His hard hit rate is, again, it's 5 games, but his hard hit rate is almost 60%. And his average exit velocity heading into last night's game was 96 miles an hour. Like, he's not getting cheated on his swings. He's hitting the ball hard. And even some of his outs have been pretty loud. I don't expect like a 60% hard hit rate because that's just unsustainable. But I do have to give him credit for early season. At least I think he's seeing the ball well, and I think he's swinging the bat well through the first 5 games of the year.
Yeah, 278 so far, 819 OPS, hit a home run. So, but but isn't his defense too a breath of fresh air?
Oh, for sure. Well, it was funny. They talked the other day about the ball that he made a play on, and they're like, "Oh, it only had a 40-some-odd% catch rate," and I'm like, it looked routine. Like, he made it look routine because he's so good out there. Whereas last year, that's at least a single. It might be a double. But like, he makes plays that are difficult look routine because he's so fluid out there.
Yeah, it's like he got a fresh start. I just get the vibe he has a fresh start and he's happy and he's with his best buddy Edmundo Sosa. They go back to their days in the St. Louis organization.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm really impressed so far.
Yeah, I think it's been a really good start for him amongst an offensive productivity that's been lacking at times. I think he's been one of the standouts for sure. Let me ask you this really quickly on the offensive, struggles early in the season. Bryce Harper's hitting under 100. Trey Turner's plate approach has been a struggle, I think, to begin this season. I'm of the mindset it's 5 games in, but I also understand why people's kind of leash for kind of leisurely approach to the beginning of the season is much smaller than it's been in years past, because people's argument is it's the same thing I've seen in the postseason year after year. Now, I think this team is going to be fine, and I do believe that they still win about 90 baseball games, but I can't fight people anymore why they're kind of pissed off over the start to the season offensively, because they're not wrong in the sense that it is kind of the same old thing, even if it is 5 out of 162 compared to the postseason, but it's the same old thing that they've seen in the postseason over the last couple of years.
I don't like the excuses I've heard, like, oh well, it's cold. Okay, well it's also cold in October.
Cold for the other team too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Ruben Amaro Jr. He was saying, well, I don't think they got enough at bats this spring, and their timing's off. I mean, well, that seems easy to fix, right? I mean, like, did they not do the appropriate work for in the spring? I mean, we've seen Turner get out of the gate slow. We've seen Schwarber get out of the gate slow. I know a lot's being made of Harper lately. They were in the World Baseball Classic till he hit that big 2-run home run,
Mhm.
but it's all happening at once. I mean, that's a frustrating thing, and they're only scoring on home runs basically, so which is problematic. So they're definitely not stringing anything together because they're supposed to be high on base players with pop, and you're getting absolutely nothing. So I, I'm still in the small sample size mode, but I'd say give it 2 weeks
Yeah, I
before.
think I think this is an instance where multiple things can be true at once. Like you can be in small sample size mode, and I think it's true because we are 5 games into 162. Just trying to do some very quick math there. We're at like I don't know, one of 33 games basically. If we're doing least common denominator, one of 33 comes out to be like I don't know what I don't know one point something percent. I don't know. My math is not mathing, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Though it's easy to say yeah, it's 5 games into the season because it's true, and it's also justifiable for people's frustrations to boil over a little bit more quickly than maybe they have in recent years because when the season ends the way that it does each of the last 2 years, which is 95 and 96 wins, and then the offense goes stagnant for really 8 of their last 10 postseason games because they are 2-8 in their last 10 postseason games, it's easy to understand why people get frustrated more quickly than they have in the past.
By the way, speaking of getting frustrated quickly, up in New York, Bo Bichette already getting booed. 2 for 22 to start the season. Imagine if he was doing that with the Phillies.
And I'll give him credit because he took accountability for it and said, yeah, I'd boo too. I stink right now, basically. But yeah, I think that there's been slow starts across baseball. Cal Raleigh, I mean, gosh, I don't think he could see a beach ball his first 10 at bats. He was striking out over everything. Aaron Judge had a little bit of a slow start. As you mentioned, Bichette had a slow start. It's not just the Phillies, but it's hyper fixated here because it's multiple guys. It is Harper, but it's also Turner, and it's also Schwarber. With the exception of those 2 home runs, Schwarber's first 5 games have not been all that enticing and exciting. So yeah, it's all around baseball. Guys are struggling. It's April, and I think when you can say, yeah, the weather it's hard to hit in this weather, that is true. But I've seen guys get out to a quick start in this weather, and I think it's hard it becomes harder to justify slow starts when your seasons end the way that they do each of the last couple of years.
And that's the Nationals. Joey Wiemer didn't get like a hit in his first 10 at bats or something like that. So, I mean,
His average is now down to like 680.
yeah. So, I mean, there's always some that start off super hot. There's always some that start off super slow. But hey, Larry Bowa used to always say, like the bubblegum card on the back, it'll eventually say ... because it is a batting average. So,
Sure.
still plenty of time for these things to correct.
So the last thing that I kind of thought we could get into today, Zack Wheeler makes his rehab assignment start in Lehigh Valley this past weekend. Goes 3 innings. Obviously, I don't think most of us watched because most of us were watching the Phillies, but the reports were pretty good. Fastball velo was okay, a little maybe a tick below what we're used to seeing from Zack Wheeler, but kind of sat in that 94-ish range. I expect him to kind of dominate AAA hitting because he's Zack Wheeler. But the early returns were good. He'll make another start this week. I'll be honest with you. When the whole blood clot was announced, and then the thoracic outlet syndrome was announced, and then the thoracic outlet restructuring surgery was announced, my thought was like, hey, if he's back by June, that's a win. We're probably going to see Zack Wheeler on the major league roster sometime in April.
Well, you are, because his his rehab assignment can only last 30 days, and he started it in March. So, yes, we will see him in April. In fact, he's going to pitch against the Durham Bulls tomorrow down in Durham. And then I believe he's going to go next to Double A Reading and pitch for the Fighting Phils. And he might be ready after that. I mean, he's kind of doing his like spring trading ramp up,
Right.
3 innings. Then he'll probably go to 4, maybe into the 5th, do 5, and then he'll be back. I could see him back after 2 more starts.
So let me ask you: do you think that it's early? Obviously, with Wheeler returning, would you think that there's a better chance that they go to a 6-man a couple times through? Because I know Zack Wheeler hates the 6-man rotation. He loves routine and pitching on normal rest. Is there a better chance they go to a 6-man early to keep Taijuan Walker in the rotation? Or do you think maybe there's a little piggyback thing going on where Walker pitches out of the bullpen if Wheeler's only able to go, give you 4 or 5 to start his 2026?
I don't think they will. I don't like it at all either, because then it cuts your bullpen down an arm. So say, oh yeah, 6 people will start. Well, then all of a sudden you have one less bullpenner. So Phillies are off tomorrow. They're off the following Thursday. They're off the Thursday after that, and then only then do they play 10 in a row. So I can see them timing it so that Walker gets a start and Wheeler gets a start in the middle of that, just to make that a little bit easier during that 10-game stretch. But I don't think it will be a 6-man rotation per se. I think that they'll just conveniently place the starts somewhere in there. Phillies head to Atlanta on Friday the 24th, and then he could possibly pitch during that series. So he might be the 6th one to pitch in that stretch, but I don't think it'll be a 6-man rotation.
Well, you talk about, being an arm short in the bullpen. That kind of came up in yesterday's game on Monday's game when Taijuan Walker pitched, because he struggled. And you mentioned it. There was some bloops and some bleeders and some things like that, but he still gave up, quite a few runs in his 4+ innings pitched. But I think it was one of those instances, because of the fact that Taijuan Walker is probably technically your long man for a majority of the season. That was kind of a, hey man, we're going to need you to kind of take your butt kicking a little bit here. Because we're a little thin. You saw Meza have to pitch multiple innings. Pops pitched several times. They don't have a long man until Taijuan Walker slides back into that spot in the bullpen. It was it could have been disastrous, because Walker doesn't pitch deep into that game. You tax your bullpen, and then you have a rookie making his major league debut. Imagine if Andrew Painter did not pitch particularly well. They would have been really, really taxed heading into today's game. Sanchez would have had to have thrown 110 pitches in his second start. Luckily, Painter pitched well, but I think in the instance you bring up, Walker moving back to the bullpen to kind of be that swing gate guy, that makes the most sense.
Yeah, the problem with most teams is that they don't have 5 starters, and then then they go a bullpen game every 5th day. I mean, even some of the teams that have a declared 5th starter, well, we'll throw an opener and then we'll get you out after the 5th. I mean, it's one of the things that has set the Phillies apart. Their bullpen is better because their starting pitching is better. So having those 5 in the rotation when they're up to full strength with Zack Wheeler, you're not going to have many long days. So, I think you need that bullpen arm in a normal basis. And that's why baseball added the 26th man to the roster, because they recognize that in this game you need that arm. So yeah, and Walker did a good job in that role. I know people gave him a lot of scrutiny because of his high salary, but you need someone who can go back and forth. I mean, there'll be rainouts and double headers, and they're not easy to navigate. So that can throw everything off for a week, even. So him being in the bullpen will be good for the Phillies. I think he did a good job last year, and getting things back to quote unquote normal, I suppose, would be good for the Phillies.
Well, and you look into it over the last couple of years, you bring up why the bullpen has been better, because the starting pitching's been so good over the last 2 seasons. So in 2024, the Phillies had the second most innings pitched per game start. They averaged 5.6 innings pitched for game start. The only team that was better was the Seattle Mariners. They also had 49% of their starts were quality starts. Again, the Mariners were the only team better. That was back in 2024. If you go to 2025, the Phillies were by far the number 1 team in quality start percentage, 52% of their starts last year were quality starts. The Red Sox were second at 44%. So you're talking about, basically 8% better than the rest of the league. And then when you talk about innings pitched per start, the Phillies were number one last year, 5.7 innings per start from their starters. That shortens the game, but as you brought up, it makes your bullpen better in the sense that they're not throwing, 250 some odd innings, over a month, or 200 innings over. What I'm being, a little bit, crazy here, but the reality is the Phillies numbers, their bullpen numbers, are as good as they've been over the last couple of years, and that's including with Craig Kimbrell at the back end of your bullpen, and that's including, Jordan Romano at the back end of your bullpen.
Oh, last year was a disaster after the Alvarado suspension.
Right.
For weeks.
And the bullpen's numbers for the most part have been as good as they've been because your starters have been so good. Your bullpen is mostly fresh heading into the postseason. Like if you think about 2022 when they made the playoffs, their bullpen, you could tell by the time they got to the World Series, those guys were exhausted. Jose Alvarado was gassed. David Robertson was gassed. They didn't have enough depth in either the bullpen or the starting rotation to kind of get them, through that last little hurdle. The last couple of years, offense withstanding, the Phillies have been in the postseason and have won a ton of games, thanks in large part to their starting rotation, which in turn helps out their bullpen.
Yeah, and pitching and defense win games. That's been the old adage, but you need some offense too. But but kudos to the Phillies.
Let's put it this way: pitching and defense win regular season games.
Yes, but yeah, the Phillies. Just think back to the 2017 era, right? I mean, your starters getting knocked out after 2 1/3. You know how many people were up and down 476 going to Lehigh Valley and Philly? It was like a cycle because we needed a fresh arm, we needed a fresh arm, we needed a fresh arm, and they don't have to deal with that anymore. But a lot of teams do. So this is why I think the Phillies are still a 90+ team win team, because that I almost say they'll win by accident with that kind of depth.
If I had to ask you, including, there's a couple position players on this list, so obviously the number gets inflated a little bit. You bring up 2017. If I had to ask you, how many pitchers do you think made appearances for the Phillies in 2017? What do you think the number is?
Oh God, it's got to be like 40.
Surprisingly not that many, but
Okay.
31 different guys made
All
an
right.
appearance. 29 different players made multiple appearances. That includes, I'll just give you some of the names here, just to kind of go back through it really quickly. 7 appearances from Kevin Segrist, 4 appearances from Casey Fine, 3 from Henderson Alvarez, 3 from Zach Curtis, 2 from Drew Anderson. And that's just some of the lower numbers. 25 from Ricardo Pinto, 20 from Jeanmar Gomez. Like the list goes on. 15 from Jensen Terrian, 14 from Yaxel Rios. Like
I haven't heard a lot of those
there's a reason
names
that
in
team
8
lost
years.
almost 100 games.
Oh man, you're giving me PTSD. Some of those in between seasons.
Rough.
Yeah,
But
really,
then,
really,
you know,
really
and
rough.
then you head to 2025 and 2024, where it's basically 30 plus starts from Zack Wheeler, 30 plus starts from Aaron Nola, 30 plus starts from Ranger Suarez or from Christopher Sanchez, about 25-ish starts per year from Ranger Suarez. It's no surprise that this team has had their success because they use so few starting pitchers who get deep into games more times than not. It makes life a heck of a lot easier, at least in the regular season.
And you know what? Those worried about the Phillies losing 3 in a row, well, they won yesterday. Christopher Sanchez takes the mound today. You got to feel good about that.
Yeah, I think, if you were to look into it just from a do they win this series standpoint, I would bet on yes. You lose game 1 the way that you did, you come back and you win game 2. Now you've got Sanchez on the mound. Like, do they win this series? My guess would be, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then suddenly they're 500 and they can easily get out of it.
And they go to Colorado next, which, you should win 2 out of 3 by accident.
Good old Colorado on Easter. I feel like that happens a lot. And in fact, that was the last series Harry Callis did. It was an Easter series at Colorado before he passed away. So
Colorado and San Francisco for 6. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of happy that they're doing their first West Coast trip early, because you get into those summer months and you've been covering the team for four straight months and every day. And then they're like, all right, 10-10 start. And you're like, ah, damn it. It's going to be 2:00 in the morning by the time I go to bed.
Oh man, yeah. But at least the Colorado ones aren't as late. So they play 4:10 on Friday. They play 8:10 on Saturday, then 3:10 on Sunday, Easter Sunday.
It's about as good as you can ask for.
Yeah, and then 2 really late night ones in Denver on the 6th and the 7th before a 3:45 get out of town game. So not terrible to keep up with overall.
All right, so Phillies have an opportunity to win the series today with Christopher Sanchez on the mound, and then you heard Frank say it there: 3 in Colorado, 3 in San Francisco, and we are off and running. And then we will get into the real stretch with a series against the Braves starting 10 in a row, and we are off and running here in the 2026 Major League Baseball season. But that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode of the Run It Back podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of it. As always, if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It takes just a few seconds, and it really helps us out. Hit the like button and leave a comment down below what your thoughts are on the early season start and Andrew Painter's Major League debut. Frank, my friend, as always, it's been fun, and we'll do it again next week. For Frank Klose, I'm Tyler Zulli saying thank you so much for being a part of this week's episode. We'll be back next week for the next installment of the Run It Back podcast. We'll talk to you then. See ya.